Hi, this presentation is about the Internet Research Agency. It will be presented by Aaron Diaz, John Sayut, and Kevin Dye. This is for the class EG 44175, the Ethical and Professional Issues in Engineering for the University of Notre Dame, London Summer Study Abroad Program. Introduction and Timeline. The goal of this presentation is to explain the background of the IRA, how they meddled in the elections of the United States, the ethical, professional, and social issues that come from this case, and how we can prevent it from happening again. To start off, we have to understand who the IRA is. The IRA is short for Internet Research Agency, and they are a Russian organization based in St. Petersburg, Russia, devoted to publicating false information on social media platforms in order to push Russian propaganda. The IRA does this in hopes of creating an illusion of a large army of supporters for certain causes. For this reason, the agency is known as the troll farm. In order to spread news fast and efficiently, the IRA relies on hundreds of workers working 12-hour shifts 5 days a week. Although these conditions seem harsh, the workers are paid a fair amount of money. Their salary is equivalent to that of a university professor. Who is funding this? The IRA is funded by a Russian oligarch known as Yevgeny Prigozhin. Prigozhin has ties with Vladimir Putin, so it is clear that the IRA is pushing the Russian government's agenda. The stakeholders. The main stakeholders in this issue are the IRA, who are the group in question, and the American people, who are the victims. The motivation and means of the IRA have already been discussed. The other stakeholders, such as Twitter and the news outlets, have a mixed place in this case. On one hand, they were used in order to promote fake news. This will cause many people to distrust the information found on their sites and stop visiting. On the other hand, they can be seen as responsible because they were unable to control the spread of fake news on their sites. This will be discussed later in the presentation. The world is affected because the USA is such a global power that the election could change the lives of millions outside of the US. The IRA began its operations by criticizing Ukraine. At the time, Ukraine was at civil war with Russian-backed separatists. Because of this, the IRA criticized the Ukraine heavily in order to appeal to Russians. Along with criticism on Ukraine, Russia's domestic affairs were big topics of criticism. During a Russian financial crisis in 2014, the ruble, or Russian currency, collapsed. This caused outrage among citizens. However, there seemed to be no discomfort online as the IRA posted thousands of messages being optimistic about Russia's financial future. In the summer of 2014, a hacking group known as Anonymous International leaked incriminating emails of Russian officials, and they leaked tweets from employees at the troll farm. These emails revealed that the IRA had been instructed to target the US as Russians felt it was them against the world on the internet. In the fall of 2014, the IRA began to troll local US. They trolled Atlanta, Georgia by spreading false news about an Ebola outbreak after an Ebola patient was treated in an Atlanta hospital. The IRA also trolled St. Mary Parish, Louisiana by faking a nuclear chemical spill in a nearby plant, scaring hundreds of people. One of the IRA's main target was Barack Obama. During Obama's presidency, the IRA criticized him heavily for his involvement in Syria, and they blamed him for the creation of ISIS. In February 2016, the first tweets and IRA internal documents found by Mueller described the agency's stance of explicit support for Donald Trump in opposition to Hillary Clinton. In spring 2016, the Internet Research Agency purchases the first pro-Trump and anti-Clinton advertisements. This is important because the question is raised of why the IRA was able to legally purchase these ads, because they appear to be agents of a foreign power. In June of that year, IRA rallies took on the specific purpose of promoting Trump and disparaging Clinton, with rallies in swing states such as Florida and Pennsylvania. These rallies were organized through recruited activists, as described previously. Fall of 2016 showed Trump, his campaign team, and a number of prominent celebrities to be gullible and unaware of the Russian interference. The mentions, retweets, and airtime given to Russian propaganda at this time reached a peak. revealing the gaping holes in the social defenses of the United States of America.
Is it morally permissible to influence people to help you or your cause? The answer to this question doesn't have a simple answer. Influence can't be inherently immoral, but its morality certainly has limitations. Influence and social pressure is only acceptable when the long-term consequences are healthy or at least palatable. An individual election may not have severe consequences for most people, but a minority may rely on it for important welfare or tax breaks. While elections can have far-reaching impact, the influence of Russia can be considered morally acceptable. Free speech is a long-held right in United States law as well as international law that is complicated by this event. How does a social media company determine a foreign actor? Is a person entitled through free speech to knowingly spread lies on the internet? International law says that espionage is illegal domestically, but legal internationally. So Russia isn't obligated to tell the US anything. While it feels evident that Russia should not be allowed to continue influencing elections, the question of how to prevent that interference is thorny at best. When first examining this case, it appeared that social media executives were more victims than people to blame. However, during the lecture by venture capitalist Tim Connors, much was discussed about professional responsibility in the tech industry. He pointed out that since many people trust what they see on social media, it's the responsibility of companies to maintain the veracity of the presented information. Twitter alone deleted over 3,000 IRA handles by June of 2018. If these accounts were identified sooner, since the IRA was known to be a propaganda farm, the disaster could have been avoided. It is partially due to faulty oversight by social media websites that this misuse wasn't identified and eliminated. One social problem of this disaster is the attack's damage to the United States social fabric. It was clear to voters that the vitriol of online conversation generated a serious problem for American political engagement. Research done on incivility and dialogue indicates that 2016 was a really bad year for these metrics. This was not directly caused by the IRA's intervention, but Russian political bots nonetheless contributed to this disheartening trend. A different social problem of this disaster relates to fake news. If an electorate can't discern truth from fiction, so much that it is weak to informational attack from foreign agencies, at what point does the voter's individual opinion fade away? Was 2016 a product of voters, its environment, or somewhere in between? Eventually, an uninformed and easily manipulated democracy isn't a democracy at all.
Why are the Russians doing this? They're doing this as a sort of psychological warfare on the EU and American people. They are trying to divide the American people and sway elections for officials they think will help their cause. This overall will make America weaker as a whole and increase Russia's fear of influence. If you have been on social media lately, especially around election time, you would have noticed arguments and tweets from opinions all across the entire political spectrum. While not all of these tweets were from Russian trolls, one can see how divisive these posts can be. The IRA's goal is to use these tweets and social media to move the American people to vote in a specific way. The Russians are doing this by using a massive amount of people writing and posting on various fake accounts. They can post fake images like the one seen on screen in order to polarize the public. Nobody is entirely sure what their actual strategy is, but using the trends, we can analyze their thought process and guess how exactly they are trying to accomplish their goal. A study of the tweets found around the US election showed the Russian trolls' tactics. The study divided these tweets into 3 groups of people in 3 categories. The groups were the trolls, people who claim to be politically active, and the normal Twitter user. The categories were junk mail, which is the fake news or extremely biased news, local news, and national news. Surprisingly, the trolls only really tweeted the junk news about 6% of the time, which is close to that of the politically active people. The IRA also figured they could share their propaganda more effectively if they focused on smaller regions of the United States rather than the country as a whole. This can be seen in the 30% tweet rate of the local news by the Russian trolls. By going local, the IRA could manipulate a smaller audience, which would be easier to do than a bigger audience. The IRA created fake local news accounts with handles appropriate to each region. These fake news accounts then tweeted news from local news outlets to convince the people they were authentic. One of the main topics for these fake news accounts was the 2016 election, as they created tweets with the hashtag Hillary or hashtag Trump. In order to have a greater impact in the election, the IRA created left-leaning and right-leaning accounts pretending to be local members within certain communities. This was all in an effort to cause discussion and division in smaller communities and then the US as a whole. This going local trend can be seen in this graph. The types of tweets shared by the IRA is shown, with fake news in red, national news in white, and local news in blue. The graph indicates that the Russians were trying to gain credibility for their fake accounts, and so they tweeted mostly local but some national news towards the beginning of 2016. They then flooded these accounts with fake news in June, September, and then right before the election. This is the fake news that they used to divide the communities. A local news reporter in Maine documented the Russian tweets aimed at Maine politicians. These tweets are clearly related to the building of credibility because they don't mention the presidential election and instead mention the local politics. This local news strategy can be seen in these tweets. This is a graph that shows the amount of blog and social media posts by the Russians over the course of around 2 years. The big spike before the election day is around the time of the WikiLeaks that came out about Clinton's emails. Surprisingly, the Russian trolls did not stop tweeting after the election or even a little afterwards to avoid suspicion. Instead, they continued tweeting past what this graph shows until 2018, which is around the time that the accounts were found. Harvard University came out with 4 ways in order to prevent the spread of fake news, and thus the Russian trolls. The first action should always be to check the credibility of the publisher. It should always be ensured that the author and website have a history of truthfulness. Lots of websites like abcnews.com.co mimic credible news sites to spread falsehoods. Along with this, a cautious reader should always check that the article is politically unbiased. If it leans towards liberal or conservative views, readers should scan a similar article from another perspective. Following these steps will help Americans formulate their own opinion on events independent of political views. Another suggestion was checking the quality. Check the language and dates in the article. Look for misspellings or a lot of punctuation in a row for dramatic effect. These indicate a less reputable source, as high-quality news sources will have editors proofread the article before the article is actually published. Checking dates is additionally crucial because faulty news accounts will occasionally share outdated news to try and trick the readers. A good reader will also check the sources of the article. This is especially crucial for articles found on social media, where many articles may be paid ads or might be dramatic and flashy in an effort to garner the attention and likes. A lack of quotes also clearly indicates that there was minimum research done by the author for the story. Also, if the information is not found on another credible site, then it is likely not confirmed that this information is true. Reverse searching the images helps to ensure that these images have not been copied or photoshopped, like the shirt posted by the IRA in a previous slide. Lastly, websites such as factcheck.org, politfact.com, and snopes.com are excellent ways to double-check if what you are reading is actually true or is just completely made-up fake news. This can help you sort through reliable and non-reliable news sources. Using these tactics, social media users can limit the spread of fake news and the efficiency of the Russian trolls.
Conclusions. In order to prevent outside organizations from influencing U.S. society, social media sites need to be able to crack down on the spread of false news faster. Readers should also become more aware of where they are getting their information from. While the IRA wasn't directly acting morally wrong, Affecting elections in this way compromises individual choice and damages democracy. These are the sources that we use for this presentation.